Hey everybody, Monday the 27th. I hope you enjoyed the weekend and perhaps maybe you had the opportunity at least to catch us up on Mass on YouTube. Again, I remind you that the opportunity is there for people to at least stay connected with St. Thomas. I pray certainly that, again, this pandemic will be over. They were talking in the news the other day about heat killing the bug. Well, if that be the case, I'm never going to complain about heat in July and August again. I hope it becomes so bloody hot I sweat in air conditioning. So keep this bug away from us. So maybe science will be able to help us with that. Maybe, but if they say heat's going to do it, then I say, bring on the heat. That's what I want. All right. Well, today we're going to talk about another pivotal player. And this is another unusual character. I talked before about Stan the Cut Man and Holy Joe from Annunciation. But today I'm going to switch over to St. Edmunds. And I'm going to talk to you about Larry Collazo. Now, you want to know who he was? In 1995, I was assigned to go to St. Edmunds as the pastor. Probably the first week I was there, the doorbell rang, the front doorbell rang. And I opened the door, and who was standing there but an obviously poor soul who reeked of tobacco and alcohol. And I opened the door and I said, "Can I help you, sir?" And he said, "You the priest here?" I said, "I am the priest." I said, "I'm Father Francis." He said, "Before we go any further, let's stop this." He said, "You're not Father." He said, "There's only one Father, and he's the guy in heaven, the maker of heaven and earth. So it's a fallacy," he said, "that you call yourself Father. So if you're the priest, I got a new name for you." He said, "I'm going to call you the Holy Man." I said, "The Holy Man?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "All right. And who are you?" He said, "I'm Larry." I said, "Well, Larry, what's your claim to fame?" He said, "Well, I live in the neighborhood. I keep things in order and everything else." He said, "But I just wanted to stop and introduce myself to you to see if there's anything that you need that I can help to make your life a little bit easier since you're new in the neighborhood. Holy Man." I said, "Well, I appreciate that." And then he said, "By the way, do you have an extra $5?" And I said, okay. I said, "But do me a favor." I said, "Don't buy beer with it." He said, "Got my word on it." So Larry left. A couple of weeks later, the doorbell rings again, show up, and who's there but my friend Larry. He says to me, "Hey, Holy Man, just checking on you to see how you're doing." I said, "I'm doing all right. How about you?" Just trying to keep things together in the neighborhood." Now, Larry had been ostracized by his family. Nobody bothered with him. He was living in a rented room in a house in the neighborhood. Mary Jane, the local committee woman, would handle his money. It came his SSI check. So she would make sure the rent was paid for the room, that he had a certain allotment for food, okay, and if he had needed transportation, have tokens for the trolley car, a SEPTA pass, or whatever the case might be. So she handled the money. But any extra money, Larry always spent drinking. It was drinking money. So all the bars knew Larry. Larry was also involved in AA, but he wasn't there for the right reason. He went for the company. That's what he did. People would try to help Larry, to help him to deal with his addiction. Nah, that ain't going to happen. He was just a sore thumb in the neighborhood that didn't hurt anybody in any way. And sometimes people took advantage of his simplicity and even his goodness. He'd give his shirt off his back if he had to. One day I got a call from Larry's in Pennsylvania hospital. He got mugged and he got shot in the leg. So he was up in Pennsylvania hospital, but they had taken care of him. And then what happened when we eventually got over that, welfare put him in a housing project up in Kensington. So I was in Fishtown at the time, and every once in a while he would call me. And he said, "Listen, Holy Man," he said, "I need like $20. Can you help me?" I said, "All right." So Larry would come down on the L, get off at Burke Street, and make his way over to the rectory. Sometimes I would go up to the house where he was and give him $10 or $15. I remember one time he came to the rectory and he asked for $5. And I said, Larry, look, I'm going to tell you right now. I said, I'm not giving you the $5 to buy food. I said, I want you to go buy a 6-pack of beer. He said, now that's the first time in my life anybody ever told me to give me money to buy liquor. I said, I figured, you probably have enough food. I said, treat yourself, go buy a 6-pack. So off he did. Anyhow, eventually, Larry got very sick with cancer. He had been in the hospital and he passed. Anyhow, the local funeral director, Steve Rufinek, called me. He says, hey, Father, he said, listen, we're going to do a little service for Larry, He said, would you come over and lead us in a little service at the funeral home? I said, sure, I'd be glad to. So I went over. No family was there at all. But the place was loaded. Now, Rufinek isn't a big place. It might hold 50 people. Well, there are probably about 60, 80 people in the funeral home, another 20, 30 outside. And I said to Steve, I said, who are all these people that showed up at Larry's funeral? His family didn't come. And they said, oh, they're all the alcoholics from the local AA meetings. Larry knew everybody. And so all the people came out. And they got up and gave little eulogies about Larry, what a kind soul he was, willing to help anybody in any way, would never hurt anybody, always had a kind word for everyone, da-da-da-da-da-da. It was kind of an emotional day. Larry's body was cremated, and the next day we had to take him to the cemetery. And so Steve, the funeral director, had gotten a plot out at Fernwood, just out in lower part of Yeadon out there. And he said, listen, would you go to the cemetery? I said, sure. I said, anybody else going? He said, no, it's just you and me. So the two of us took Larry's ashes and we went out to Fernwood Cemetery. We gave him a proper burial. I've often thought about Larry. He was a kind soul. He never did anything special, never hurt anybody, always had a smile on his face. I remember when I was leaving St. Edmunds, he came to the rectory with tears in his eyes. He says, Holy man, I'm really going to miss you. He said, and to think, he said, that bishop had the nerve to transfer you after all you and I did for this church to make this place special. Building it up as we did, you and me, he said, we had a great partnership. I said, Larry, I'm telling you right now, I couldn't have done it without you. He said, well, that was nice of you to say, but it's nice to hear. He said, I appreciate the fact that you recognize my talent. Who was Larry? He was just a simple soul. Didn't have a mean bone in his body. He tried to be kind to everybody. He had his issues because he had blown his mind with drugs and alcohol some years before. But he always took pride in his own self, and he took pride in the people from AA. And when he would go to those meetings, he would sit down and he would always compliment people for their talks and all the other business. He didn't have a mean bone in his body. Was he a pivotal player? Yeah, I think he was. I think I would put it in the category of never wrote anything or said anything special or did anything, but he was just a kind soul. How do people get to heaven? Not because of what you know. I said, I think because of what you do. Larry was such a soul that was just like that. I pray one day to be in his presence where he can again call me the holy man, and we can reminisce about times that we lived together downtown and shared stories about a neighborhood that in many ways was violent, but a neighborhood that was together because of people like him and hopefully because of people like myself. Remember him, Larry. God bless you all. Talk to you tomorrow.